Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Emilio and Taylor Brands webinar.
Hey guys.
I'm Guy. Hey, Kira.
Hey guy.
I'm Guy Tubul. I'm the head of design of Emilio, and with me is Kira Goldring, which is the content lead at Taylor Brands.
Yeah, hi guys. It's so fun to be here. I just want you all to know that we have a couple of great giveaways that we're really excited about. That's part of the webinar for anyone that's registered. So make sure to stick around because we'll be announcing it at the end of the webinar. Yeah, and it's great to be here.
Awesome, great to have you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Emilio and Taylor Brands webinar.
Hey guys.
I'm Guy. Hey, Kira.
Hey guy.
I'm Guy Tubul, and I'm the head of design of Emilio. And with me is Kira Goldring, which is the content lead at Taylor Brands.
Yeah, hi guys. It's so fun to be here. I just want you all to know that we have a couple of great giveaways that we're really excited about. That's part of the webinar for anyone that's registered. So make sure to stick around because we'll be announcing it at the end of the webinar. Yeah, and it's great to be here.
Awesome, great to have you. Well, guys, due to COVID restrictions in our area, we are hosting this webinar from home, which I bet feels pretty familiar to most of you.
Yeah.
Today, our topic will be storytelling for SMBs, basically how to turn your business into a brand. Any questions that you have during the talk, please send them over on the QA section, and our moderator will do her best to reply to you all. If if you feel that you have any further questions during the event or after it, please feel free to send us an email to webinars@mediapayments.com. So, Kira, what do you say? Let's start.
Cool. Yeah, Guy, feel free to kick it off.
Okay. So I'll share my screen. Okay. So today we will talk about storytelling for SMBs and what does it say in meaning of small businesses and how they should use this practice. It's a very simple and yet common practice that even large brands, enterprise like Apple and Airbnb are using in order to make users and customers what to feel and think about their brand and product or services that they're out there. I think from my perspective and experience, I think that even though small businesses less likely to find themselves in long processes with brand agencies and stuff like that, I think that any business owner should run this practice upon his business or company. It's an easy practice that can really help you understand what the focus of your business or value proposition should be once you understand all this. things through a very simple practice. Let's get started. Well, storytelling is a powerful technique for building relationships. It's it's a technique that brands are using in order to convey messages through their products or services in all kinds of different ways. In order to write a great brand story, you need to define three simple components that relates to your brand. Will be brand positioning, brand personality, and core values. I will touch in every single one of these components and explain and elaborate more. But these are basically the key components in order to write a great story for your business. Even if you started a business and you're thinking about working with a freelance designer or a small agency, probably they won't be able to offer you this kind of service of in-depth brand strategies and stuff like that. But I think that any brand owner can easily do that, learn from this practice, and reflect it upon his business. So let's get started with how it looks like and how it feels like. What is brand positioning? Well, brand positioning will be the ability of your brand or company to plant a simple idea in your customers' minds. It will help you differentiate it from the competitors. I think this will be what usually a word that users or customers will resonate in their heads whenever they encounter with your brand. Let's take a look of some examples that I think are explaining this practice pretty well. Let's take Tesla. Tesla has been, well, we all know that these are electric cars, top-notch electric cars, and Tesla are investing billions of dollars in order to make their consumers feel a very simple story and specific idea. They are modern and innovative. Tesla is a very relatively young company that have succeeded in the work and focus upon these values to basically get a total control of this market of electric cars. Just because they invested so much money in telling a great brand story. Same with these, Volvo. It's a car company that invests so much money and budgets to win every car safety test out there every year. And this is what they want to convey to customers: safety and quality. Well, you ask yourself how you're going to define your brand positioning, or how you're going to define your brand positioning. In any of these components, you should really think how you're going to explain it very briefly. Think of how you're going to write everything in simple words, how you would describe your service, product, or company. It should be a one-liner. Don't go into too complicated stories. Don't go into trying to write your brand story or whatever. Think of it, if someone asks you about your company or brand, how would you describe it in one sentence? Another thing is to get in consideration is, how does it benefit your customers? What's brand personality? Well, brand personality is essentially the human characteristics associated with your brand. Like we talked about earlier, in order to make people relate emotionally to your brand, people find themselves more related to humans. So that's why brand in the world are trying to get human characteristics in order to get more a better relationship with their customers or service or whatever they are selling is in order to how to resonate users minds with values like friendly, responsible, sophisticated. This is important because human related to other humans emotionally and want to inspire to by a better version of themselves. Let's talk about some examples from for brand personality. Apple. What do you think when you see these images? Apple has really focused in the last years on creating a very clean images of their products and services in order to create an iconic identification for their products. This is a decision. This is a decision that drives from a brand story. Apple wants you to feel something when they use their software or products. They want you to feel something about yourself. Will probably be something like this. They want you to feel creative, innovative, intuitive, stylish, and cool. Keep in mind that Apple almost never shows buttons of their products. They show very iconic, flat product images in order for you to feel this way. They will use creative images that they are basically creating through a lot of different creatives around the market, and they want to make it as stylish as it can be and cool as it can be. These are design decisions that specifically drive from a great brand story. Airbnb. Let's take Airbnb. Airbnb want to convey their story through images, through moments, through pictures that basically take every moment and makes you feel something about it. They want you to have an authentic experience. How do they do that? They use a very specific art direction in their images in order to convey this image. This brand personality always will make you feel relaxed, friendly, exciting, authentic, lovable. How, well, this is a simple practice to how to define your brand's personality. It will be basically through picking 3 to 5 adjectives that you want to own in this area. Um, it will help you define what you want people to think about your brand. It will be like a specific human being that you can write a short story. Don't go into complicated stories. Write, be brief, write a simple 4 to 6 sentences story description on how this person or brand personality should look like, feel like, what she does, how she dressed. Be very simple. It's very important in order to perform this practice on upon your brand. What are core values? Well, core values will be the values that people can think and feel when they're using your service or product or any other thing thing that you're selling and decide on why they should go with your brand or why they should pick your experience on top of other competitors. Core values will drive your brand story. They will function as the DNA of your brand and company. It's very important to define them within the company, but they're not always explicitly stated to the public. Like, I mean, this is something that your employees should know about and feel about, but it's not something that you will write like in your website or in your marketing, but it will help you drive better story when you create marketing messaging and stuff like that. Core values should be defined on two different levels: emotional values and functional values, and we will elaborate more on the differences between emotional values and functional values. Emotional values will be the values as you, as the company owner, want your customers or employees to feel when they interact with your brand, service, or product. Functional will be how they think about it. Um, it's very important to emphasize the differentiation between the two because it will help you create a better value proposition of what you want your users or consumers to feel when they use your service or product or your website once they buy from it, and what they will think about it when they tell someone about you, when they tell the great experience that they had when they used your service or product or buy some kind of merchandise from your website or something like that. We'll finish with a quote that I think pretty much sums everything we looked at here, of Maya Angelou, which was an American poet. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I think this quote pretty much sums everything we covered today in my perspective of how a simple brand story will work and help you emphasize the strength of your brand and values. I think that Kira will take it even further into the actual stuff of how you gonna make your brand storytelling work when you create your marketing website or any other assets that interacts with the users. Kira, want to take it from here?
Sure. Yeah, Guy, thank you so much. That was a great point to end off of for me to piggyback on. Um, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Um, okay, so yeah, Guy, thanks a lot. A lot of what we're going to talk about, like I said, is sort of now that you kind of have the foundation of how to create your brand story, really how to use that and put it out into the world. But just before I get into it, I want to reintroduce myself. Like I said, I'm Kira. I'm the content lead at Taylor Brands. And I think for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are an AI-powered logo design and branding platform for small and solo businesses just like you. So what that means is,
And that matters for our users that don't know what is Melio. So Melio is a payment platform meant especially for small businesses to pay and get paid. So feel free to check us out after this session.
yeah, I think it's this is one of the reasons that we wanted to do this together, because a lot of our users have sort of the same needs, and it's something, Guy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we saw, from all of our users, that branding is a big question that a lot of people have, and yeah, so that's why we did this webinar together. So yeah, so I just wanted to say with Taylor Brands, you come into our platform, you type in the name of your business, and within a few clicks, you have a logo that perfectly represents you. You can then take that logo and put it on a website, which we offer, social media designs. You can print cool merchandise and swag. And we also have recently added expert design services for those that really want a hands-on approach, and our experts just build your website for you from scratch. And I think in working with a lot of different small businesses, we've sort of come to learn a lot about what people think their brands are, versus how to actually create a brand and focus on the things that are important. And like we said, we'll be focusing on as Guy focused on brand storytelling, and those are a lot of the things that we're going to cover now. So I want to talk about how to really reinforce your brand story once you know your brand positioning and your core values. Again, as Guy spoke about, and your brand personality, how to create trust with your audience so that they'll connect with your brand story. And a big way to create this trust is to use the 3 C's of branding, which I'll talk about more soon. And then finally, once you've built this trust, how is it that you get your story out into the world? So I want to take a step back for a second and just talk about what is a brand. I think it's something that we know what a good brand is when we see it. Like Apple was a great example. We know that they're really cool, but we don't necessarily know why they're a great brand. And Guy touched on some of it. It's something that's just really amorphous. And I think what's important, an important takeaway from today that I want you guys to have is a brand ultimately is the perception your customers have of you. So there are a lot of ways that you can influence what that perception is, and that's part of what we're talking about today. But in the end of the day, you create your brand story, you do the best you can, and then you set it free. And then it's in the hands of your customers, and they think about you, whatever it is that they're going to think. So we're going to try to talk about ways that you can influence that perception to be and to align with the story that you want to create for your brand. And I love this quote to talk about what branding is, sort of in terms that are easier to understand, which is that marketing is the equivalent of asking someone on a date. Branding is the reason they say yes. And so let's take a look at that in like a real world example. Okay, so first of all, how is it that you get people to say yes? How do you get people to say yes to that date? And as a business owner, especially if you're just starting out, you really need everyone that's relevant to you to say yes, right? It's how you grow. It's how you turn your side hustle into a full-blown business. It's how you scale. It's how you get more clients. And branding and good branding is really at the heart of getting people to say yes. So let's take this example. Let's say you are dating and you met this guy named Don Draper. Let's say you met online. That is a Mad Men reference for those of you who get it. And let's say you're talking to him and he seems really cool, and you find out he's a high-tech lawyer and he like really loves dogs, and you're like, okay, like this guy sounds like he could be up my alley. I also love dogs. I'm really interested in high tech, and he seems like a really cool guy. So then you do what everyone in the 21st century does, and you head over to his other social media profiles and you check him out. And I'm just gonna say, for your business, like, the second people come in contact with you, they're gonna look up your business on any other social media profile. They're gonna really do their research. So know that this is very applicable. Okay, so you go to look up John and you head to his LinkedIn profile, and there it says that he's an accountant. And you're kind of like, okay, interesting. I thought he was a high-tech lawyer. Here it's saying an accountant. Maybe this is a flag. Maybe you misunderstood. I don't know. Already things are feeling like a little bit strange, that the story is not really adding up. So you're like, okay, let's do a little bit more digging. And then you head to his Facebook profile and you see that his photo has no resemblance to what his photo was on the app. And you like double check. You're like, is this even the right profile? It is. And I'll just say this, for me, I'd be out at this point. I mean, I'm not going to bother researching further. This dude's super weird. It's not matching up. Like, why is his story so different across profiles? And then you head to his Twitter, and that's like the last straw. You see that he actually doesn't love dogs. He's more like a cat guy, and you're like, definitely a dog guy. And you're like, this is just super bizarre. And I think sort of the experience that's being created around this Don guy is confusion, right? Like he's super inconsistent, and inconsistency leads to confusion. What you don't want your audience to feel when they come in contact with you is confusion, because confusion leads to distrust. And if they don't trust you, they're not going to do business with you. And this is why I love this analogy so much, because it could be for Don, he has a perfectly acceptable reason why all of this information doesn't add up. Maybe he used to be an accountant and then became a high-tech lawyer. Maybe he had a career change. Maybe he got plastic surgery. I don't know. But until, like, if you as the person looking at him to date him, you're not going to stick around to find out, because it's very confusing and you don't trust this guy who seems like super sketchy. So I love this quote by Marie Forleo, that a confused mind always says no. And what we're talking about with creating your brand story and getting it out into the world is having them trust you, right? Like trust, like we said before, is really, really at the forefront of building good connections with your audience and getting them to stick around. And a confused mind, someone who's confused when they come in contact with your brand, they're not going to say yes to your service or your products. So 2 takeaways I just want us to have before we move forward is that you have a brand, whether you know it or not. Your brand is ultimately your reputation. It's in the minds of your customers. The second you create a website, you handed out your first business card, maybe you even told a friend about your business, you already have a brand. And the more you're active online, the stronger your brand is, and it's already been put into a lot of places, and it's kind of harder to get control over it. So your brand is out there. The question is, what you're going to do about it. How are you going to be able to create the story, like Guy was talking about, that you want to be telling through your brand personality, through your value proposition, through all of those things? How do you get your customers to see that story the way that you see it? And the other thing is, it's very much what other people think or feel when they interact with your business. So the moment it's out there, they could come to your business and maybe you want them to see it the way that we see Apple, right? That they're innovative, that they're modern, they're sleek, they have all this flat imagery. But if you're not giving off that impression, your customers aren't going to see it that way. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what you intended if it's not translating. Your audience is really at the center of your brand. So how do we build trust? The trust that we keep talking about, you build it through your interactions with potential customers. Every interaction you have is a chance for you to build trust. It's a chance for you to build connection with your audience. So let's look at some ways to do that. Okay, so we're going to dive into the 3 C's, which is the way that I like to talk about creating trust. The first one is being clear, nailing your pitch. So we're going to do a little exercise right now. If you have a pen and paper, feel free. Otherwise, you could just do some brainstorming in your head. But the first way to get super clear on what you offer is just to write down your name and what you do. Who are you? So for example, I'm Anne, a wellness coach. I'm Javier, I'm a real estate agent. I'm Ricky, I'm an energy healer. I'm Noah. Just put down what your name is and what it is that you do. 4 words. It doesn't need to be more than that. So then this is a very, very, very important part of this. You have to figure out who it is that you serve. And I'm going to say right now, you do not serve everyone. Your product or your service, it's not for everyone. And this is like a positive thing, because the more targeted you are about who it is that you serve, the higher the chance that you can craft your offer in a way that speaks to them and that you can get them to say yes to your business or to your product. So for example, Anne could serve pro wrestlers who recently recovered from an injury, right? It's super specific, but again, it's really important to be as specific as you can here. And then, okay, so you know who you are, you know who you serve, but what are you promising them? And Anne's promise might be, I promise them that I can help them get back to their weight class in a healthy and stress-free way. Again, this promise is super specific to the people she serves, but that's great because that, any pro wrestler who just recovered from an injury who sees this is like, yes, that is the story that I connect with, and that's what I need help with. Okay, so all of that might be well and good, but you have to be clear on your offer, and your offer has to be something that your audience will connect with and be able to use. Because, for example, if you live in California and you only offer one-on-one personal training sessions and your ideal client lives in New Jersey, it's not going to work, right? So you have to offer something that resonates with them, which could be an online one-on-one coaching session, which all of a sudden that's like very relevant for the guy in New Jersey, because he can just hop on Zoom like we're doing now and have his session with you. So be really clear about what your offer is. And finally, this is something that a lot of people leave out. I think we're so focused sometimes on getting on images, getting our images exactly right or getting our copy right, that we forget to add the most important thing, which is how your audience or your customers can get in touch with you. I will say that email is a really convenient and easy way, and most customers prefer email. People don't love getting on the phone anymore, but if you do have a phone or a chat service or however they get in touch with you, make sure that that's super, super clear. And finally, if you have a location, which like for a lot of us now, especially during COVID times where a lot of businesses have jumped online, maybe that's not relevant, but if it is, if you have a brick and mortar, then of course have that down and have that clear. And at this point, you're kind of ready to create your logo and figure out what would be the best design for your pitch, right? Think about the images and the colors and everything that match your brand personality, like Guy said before, and that go along with your pitch. You can create your logo at Taylor Brands or wherever it is that you get it done. This is just a really good time to do that as a symbol of another symbol that your audience can trust you. So our next C is consistency. Being consistent. This goes back to exactly what we saw with our guy Don. He was super inconsistent and it was really confusing. And if you're not consistent about telling your brand story and you're not telling the same story repeatedly, it's going to turn people off, and they're not going to trust you. So a way to look at your consistency, first of all, is to map out any interactions you already have with your audience, and we'll come back to this in a bit. So that means if you have a website up, check your website, your social media posts, are they all in the same language? Are they using different tones of voice? Is all of your information consistent across these interactions? Are you telling the same story? Even on your invoices, is your logo there? Are your colors there? Does it look the same as it does on your social media profiles? Okay, these are a lot of things that you should check. Anywhere that you could potentially be interacting with your audience, just comb through that and make sure everything is telling the same story. And yeah, like I said, just make sure your pitch and your logo, your contact information is everywhere, because this is ultimately what will help you not only create the story, but make sure that it sticks and make sure that it's constantly being told. And I love this quote that says, you only get a brand through interactions by making promises and keeping them. And we already worked on the promise in the previous exercise, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it soon. Okay, so the last of our C's is be competent, which really just means give value, but that doesn't start with a C, so we're going to go with competent. And the idea is, they know that they can trust you now. They know who your brand is, what it does, but now they need to know if you can help them. And the way that you tell them that yes, you can, is you show up consistently as someone who provides value, as someone who shows them that you're an expert in what you do, that you are the person that can be able to help your client with whatever it is that they need. And being competent or giving value will translate into creating valuable content, which we'll talk about soon. That could be, giving advice in groups online, and lastly, getting testimonials, which again, we'll talk about. So once you have the 3 C's down and you know how to build trust, it's time to really take all of that and strengthen your brand story by, like we said, combing existing interactions to start with. Make sure in all of these interactions that you have the 3 C's down, and then make sure to show up in the future with clarity, consistency, and competence in every future interaction you have with a potential customer, with your audience, or with current customers. I think you're going to be releasing your story into the world. That's sort of like the takeaway here. And once you give it to the hands of your audience, like they're going to be the ones telling the story. So again, you want to do everything you can to make sure they're telling the story you want them to be telling. So once you do that, it's time to start forming new interactions and really meet your audience where they are. This is a really important point because I think we've seen a lot of businesses that sort of, again, they try to market to everyone. They try to talk to everyone. And if you think about, you know, Anne, the wellness coach who is really trying to reach pro wrestlers, because that's who her program is designed for, she shouldn't be like going on Pinterest and, you know, trying to post really inspirational posts about, I don't know, about wellness that are just going to fall into a void of like inspiration and holiday decor, you know, and have nothing to do with the people that she's actually trying to serve. And so, yeah, meeting your audience where they are is something that you should figure out from the start. And here we can, oh, okay. So part of this is to get customer testimonials and bring your audience to you. If you don't have any customers, don't worry. Like, even if you're trying to get your first customer, actually a really great way to start getting people to interact with your business is to offer some sort of incentive. You can offer them a discount in exchange for a testimonial after they use your service or product. You can offer to feature them on your social media accounts. There are really a lot of ways to get testimonials, but again, what's important is that your story will live in the minds of your customers. And if you can get them to tell your story for you, to tell the story of your brand, that's a really, really powerful way to ultimately grow your brand and get new business and get new customers. People always look for reviews before they use a service or product, and especially the reviews that are saying exactly what you want them to say. That's the best PR you could ask for. Okay, so how do you increase interactions, right? Like, you've combed them, you figured out what it is that maybe you need to change, maybe you need to make some tweaks, and now you know what your story is and you want to keep consistently putting it out into the world. So this is something I believe in a big way. Like I said, I'm the content lead at Taylor Brands. Content is my baby, and I'm really passionate about it because it's an amazing way to reach your audience. And it's also probably one of the biggest ways you can really show up for them and give value is just by creating content that speaks to them and that they will find helpful in whatever your niche is. So there are a few things to think about before and as you create content, which we'll break them down in a minute. Is it relevant? Is it distributable? Like, can you reach new audiences with it? Does it consistently provide value? Are you constantly showing up as an expert? Are you constantly helping with your content, or are you just posting just to post? And finally, does it boost your credibility? So I think with relevance, a lot of times the things we think are relevant, and this is true for us even at Taylor Brands, you know, things we think our audience will love, sometimes they don't, or sometimes it doesn't meet them exactly where they are in their journey, and that's totally fine. A great way to check is to ask your community. Like I said before, show up in the places that they are, test different content ideas on social media. Here's like an example. If you're a wedding planner, you could say, I'm doing some research and I'm curious, are most of you planning on eloping, or are you planning on getting married in smaller venues? And then depending on your answers, you could write a post about that on how to plan the best COVID wedding. I don't know if, let's say we're talking about this during COVID times. So yeah, and then the next thing is to note, like, is this content that you can get out into the world? Obviously you can post on your website, you can post on social media, but a great way to get visible and get visibility on the things you create is to tag other people, bring them into the conversation. You can tag influencers, you can tag other brands that are relevant, companies that are that do similar content, that you can ask them to link back to your post. You can reach out to different blogs and say, hey, like, I noticed you wrote this great post about how to find homes in New Jersey, and I just came up with a great checklist for things you need to know before buying your first home. I'd love it if you could link back to me. And for a wedding planner, you could write a post about like 5 best small wedding venues in Austin, and then actually tag those venues, and then they'll share it on their social media accounts. And again, it's a really good way to get your brand story out there and gain traction. And okay, so I feel like a broken record, but it's really important that it provides value and that the content you create is actually useful. And and that your audience will relate to it. Because again, you're trying to promote trust, and you're trying to create trust with them. And the more you show up for them in a positive, valuable way, the more likely they are to trust you and to stick with you. I also want to say, I think when it comes to content creation, this is something that turns off a lot of new small businesses, or, you know, people who are, I know like at Taylor, we have a lot of people who are working on their side hustle while they also work full time, and they don't have a ton of hours every week to devote to their business. So I'll say, like, content creation doesn't have to be crazy time consuming. I won't lie, like, it does take time, but you don't need to post every day on social media. You don't need to write 17 blog posts a month. It doesn't have to be like that. I do argue, though, that the content you do create should just be quality. It's definitely quality over quantity. And there's a lot of ways you can repurpose content that you really only create once, tweak it a little bit, and you can use it in 4 different places. So for example, I don't know, like the post you wrote about what to do before, or how to plan your COVID wedding. So you can turn that into a PDF checklist. You can make it a cheat sheet that's downloadable. You can also create it as like a Instagram carousel, so people can swipe through and read the tips. You know, you can take one piece of content and get it visible in 4 different ways. It's important to always have link backs to it, whether on your website, social media. Even if you send emails to your customers, you can always have it in your signature at the bottom. And finally, you can either give away content for free and or ask people to give you their emails to receive it, or send you a message and you'll message them back with the link to it. And that's a really good way to get people to engage with you, and also, you know, for you to collect email addresses and then later give them more valuable content. And again, slowly build trust with them and get your brand story out there. Okay, and lastly, every time you create content, you want to know if it boosts your credibility as a brand, and it boosts your brand story. So you can always submit something you write to local articles or to other like symbols of authority, whether in your community or in your niche, and then they'll write the article about you, and then you can share that article on your personal channels, on your website, tag them when, you know, post it on your Instagram, tag them, they'll tag you. Again, it's a lot of great ways to gain visibility, while also making sure that other people are like, oh, hey, this really cool publication tags them. I know them, so this business must be credible. This brand is a brand that I want to do business with. So, okay, I think we just covered a lot. So just to sum up, your brand story will be a successful story if you can build trust with your audience, and if you can constantly improve and initiate interactions with them. It's really important to stick to the 3 C's, which is being clear, consistent, and competent, providing value, which is a big part of building this trust. And finally, using content, using social media to increase your interactions with your audience and make sure to gain visibility, and that will help you grow your brand over time. So guys, thanks a lot.
Wow, Kira, that was amazing. So insightful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We wanted to remind you guys as well about the giveaways that we have planned. I think we mentioned it before. So first of all, we have a branding cheat sheet that kind of summarizes a bunch of what Guy and I both said throughout the webinar, that will help you kind of put all of this together in under an hour and really be clear on what your brand is. And Melio is also providing a great template for 5 tips to maintain a healthy cash flow, which I think a lot of you guys will find really useful.